So, today we're going to look at the letter B. I'm designing graffiti font, letter B. That's what we're doing here. A bit like Sesame Street, isn't it? Remember Sesame Street? Big Bird and the Count and all them people. I was more of a Muppet Show kind of guy, to be honest, and at a push, Fraggle Rock. But anyway, letter B. It's not my favourite letter. In fact, when I started doing this, I was thinking, have I done one of these before? I don't think I have. Maybe I did. I'm gonna have to hunt around anyway. I'm trying to put together something at the moment, which I can't really tell you about, but you will find out probably next year. And it's going to involve quite a lot of font work, graffiti font work. So anybody who does letters or struggles with letters or anything like that, you might be very interested in it. Now, a bit of a disclaimer, this really. I'm not primarily, I've said this a million times, but I'm going to say it again because some of you are new to the channel. I'm not primarily a letter artist. All graffiti artists must be able to do letters. That's kind of like the unwritten law. All graphers must be able to do letters because it is essentially a letter-based art form. So you got to be able to do letters. There are those of us who specialise in characters because that's the way the cards fell, you know. Either we got good at them or we preferred to do them, or our crew needed a character artist and so we stepped up, or mostly we're just people who sort of preferred doing characters. That's kind of how it worked for me. I painted letters for years actually, before really painting characters. But when I started painting characters, I didn't really want to paint letters anymore. In fact, I really should paint some letters soon, thinking about it. But if I do paint letters, I will do a whole piece with a character and some letters. Otherwise, I can't really. I don't know. I can't really satisfy myself if I just do a letter piece nowadays. That's the way it is. Anyway, you see me doing these bees. I'm doing them in real time, so you can see the technique. I guess that's what I'm showing here. People ask me about technique sometimes, and this is very indicative of my technique. What I'm doing, I work quite slowly but very surely. Slow and sure. Some people work very fast, great big sort of whipping movements and that sort of stuff. I've seen people who work slower than me, much slower. I thought I worked super slow, but I've seen people who work even slower than this. You can see the top level. I always start as simple as possible, trying just to sort of find some shapes. So just to start with that top left one, that's a slightly top heavy one, nice curves. Next one's a bit more angular, again top heavy. The next one is bottom heavy. The fourth one I've done there, that's quite bottom heavy as well, but with a bit of flair on it, with a bit of interesting flow on it. The one that I'm working on here is more of a sort of throwy style, all curves and so on. Yeah, B is, I've said it already, but I'll say it again. It's not my favourite letter, although you can still do stuff with a B. I feel that I can still do stuff with a B in a way that I probably couldn't do with, say, a V or something like that. There are letters that I will not be doing like this. I get a lot of requests when I do fonts and do letter sheets and stuff. I get a lot of requests of people saying, "Oh, can you do X next?" And I'll be like, "Nah, probably not, because I don't think I'll be able to stretch to 12 of them, frankly." Leave it to somebody who is a real lettersmith. There are guys out there who are like properly into the font work who could produce you 12 versions of an X or 12 versions of a V or something. When I get onto the harder letters, I'll probably just do like a row, a row of 3 of the ones that I really don't like. Like I can't ever really get on with D's. Y's drive me nuts. What else? Things like W's, it's them kind of things. Just not very good at them, You find that, well, I've found anyway, that when you write your name quite a lot, you get very familiar with the way a letter is structured. Like C's, I could do loads of C's now, loads of different C's, all kinds of different C's. When you're designing fonts, there's a few things to bear in mind, and I'll just say them here because they're worth sort of just keeping in your head intellectually, if nothing else. Top heavy, bottom heavy, curves, angles, bubbles, hard edges. Oh, this means something to you. I'm illustrating all these things, by the way, on this sheet. I've only done... I don't know if you've noticed this about my work, but I do, while I work with curved edges sometimes, I much prefer angular edges. Much prefer them. So, obviously this bee that I'm working on at the moment, this big one, this is a big, very, very bottom heavy, very curvy bee. I would probably never use this in real life, unless I was completely out of options. Like if I'd done a load of different stuff before and needed to change it up somehow on a commission piece or something like that. But I just never do this. This is why I like doing these sheets, because I get to do stuff that I wouldn't normally do. But yeah, the big curves and everything, I just much prefer angles. Like this one that I'm working on now, this one that you see, this is much more my cup of tea. Something really angular, something with a bit more movement on it. There's one later that you're going to see, which is a sort of... I've not done any sort of... I was thinking about this because people often want me to do like very techie letters and stuff like that, and techie letters are not really my thing particularly. I can do some techie letters and I can change it up, but I have to really work at that stuff. I have to really work hard because I'm not a big font guy, So I have to work very, very hard at putting together really sort of techish letters. But there is one coming up that I really like, and I stuck arrows on it. And it's the most techie one with the most movement and the nicest angles for me, and it is my favourite by far on this page. You'll see in a bit. And this one that I'm working on at the moment, this is very similar to that one. It's got the lovely sort of what it's got. So it's got that concave back, which indicates a big forward thrust, a forward movement. And it's got the big bottom bar or the big middle bar, that sticks right out, and then it sort of obviously whips back in, and so you get this fantastic dynamic. And them kind of letters are really, I just love them kind of letters with angles on, really angular. What else to say about this? You'll probably notice as well that I'm working with different line weight, and this is absolutely a thing about preference for me. I like big chunky lines. I like them on pieces, and I like them in black books. Not everybody does, I'm aware of that. Some people love super skinny lines. They like really thin lines, and the thinner the better. I was like that back in the 80s. I mean, we're all like that back in the 80s. It was all about thin lines, how thin you could make your lines. It changed a little bit. It changed up, and now anything goes, because anything goes. But for me, I started to drift towards the fat line. The fat, particularly working in black line. I'm working purely in black ink on this one. And if I'm working with black ink, I'm going to use different line weight, because it's something that it draws the eye, different line weight. I've done a very subtle different line weight on this one that I'm doing here. It sort of looks beautiful. It's a beautiful aesthetic. Like if you've noticed the negative spaces on all these, not all of them, but most of the letters, nearly all the letters, it's very tiny amounts of negative space. Some people like big, huge blocks of negative space in their letters and stuff. I don't really do that. It's not something that I like. I don't like the aesthetic of it. I like pulling the negative space right in and really scrunching it up tight, so you get big bars on the letters, no matter whether they're sort of chunky, bubbly, curvy, angular, whatever they are. I like to close up that negative space, make sure they're big and bulky, you know. So this is the letter I was talking about, and you can see it's very similar to the one above. It's just a bit. So I've added a serif on the bottom. If you don't know what serifs are and that kind of stuff, then watch my video about Wildstyle, which is in my videos somewhere. I talk about serifs quite a lot in that video. So I've added a serif at the bottom and a different serif at the top, and I've stuck these arrows on to sort of. I just thought it's too delicious a sort of dynamic movement not to really. Indicates a lovely bit of flow, you know, the backwards arrow and the forwards arrow. All this would depend on your pick, because these are essentially what we call dead letters. They're just letters on their own. I was talking about people ask me to do Wildstyle letters and stuff like that and design them, and how do I do Wildstyle? The thing is, when you're doing Wildstyle is so much about your connections and the way your letters connect to each other. I've actually seen bubbly Wildstyle. If you look at an artist like Blavo, for instance, he does this sort of mad bubbly Wildstyle. It's all curvy and lumpy and bubbly, and it's not what you might expect. You look at Ecto, and his letters are like blades. Looks like you're going to cut yourself on them. Completely different. So the idea that you can kind of go, okay, I'm going to show you some Wildstyle letters. Any of these letters that you see here could be adapted into Wildstyle, pretty much. I mean, you know, there's always going to be somebody who disagrees with that or whatever. Oh, by the way, I always get so much hate. I always get so much hate when I do letters. There's always somebody who pipes up and says, oh, they're rubbish, or they're so similar, or whatever. But it's funny, you know, whenever I say to these people, listen, okay, that's fine, you can critique my work. I don't have a problem with that. Just direct me to your Instagram and I'll come and critique yours as well. And they always vanish without a trace. I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know why. Anyway, this letter is by far and away my favourite. It's even got, so the one above it has got a sort of, like I said, it's got the concave back and everything. This one I go a bit further, because it's almost like its back is an S shape. It's got a sort of, it goes in and then out again and in again, and it's so it's even more dynamic. So this one, you know, the one I've just done, that is my favourite by far. This one I'm doing at the moment, this is sort of like, I'll be honest with you, at this point I'm slightly running out of ideas. I was going to do this one as a big rocky one, because I sometimes do a big rocky one, you know. As I begin to struggle for ideas, I think, I know, I'll do a big, like, ridiculously massive, like, oversized one, which would be a sort of blockbuster B, and or whatever letter it is, and that'll fill a block, won't it? But you know, the panic is slightly on me at this point, because I've done, this will be number 9 that I've done, and bear in mind that, you know, when I'm sketching these out, I'm freestyling them. I'm rolling whatever I can. I'm not spending hours and hours and hours on this. The idea is you don't do that. There's no point to that. You just jam it. You jam it as quickly as you can. You know, try to come up with what you can come up with. Like this one, I've got to be honest, I looked at this and I thought, this really isn't very good. I'm going to get some hate for that one probably, but you know, I'm honest enough to say that I just jammed it. I would never do it on anything. I don't think it really works very well. I tried to do a sort of bottom heavy kind of, you know, just give it some kind of movement, something. It's the aesthetic is not one that I like. Let's be honest. It's not for me, you know, and that's fine. By the way, that's fine. The one that I'm about to start, I shouldn't really preempt, should I? I should wait until I finish this one before I start talking about the next one. But I tell you what, I won't. I'm going to talk about the next one anyway. So the next one, here we go. I'm cracking on with it. This is sort of calligraphy version. I do one of these every time I do a letter sheet because I like the sort of, they call it Old English, don't they really? But I do, it's a graffiti take on an Old English letter, and I always have a go at them. Just have a go at them really, because I've always loved the aesthetic, and if you can catch it, this one I have to be honest. I have to say is not one of my best, just because it's a bit static. It's a bit sort of vertical, and there's no kind of movement to it. If I had my time again, I'd probably do a big slant, or break it up, or even do what I've done on the one above. Although then people would probably say that it's too similar to the one above, so I can't really win on that one. But anyway, I thought I'd try one anyway, and it's okay. It's all right. It serves a purpose. I get to do, and this one, of course, I get to alter line weight a lot because it's got little tapered points on it, and it's the only one that's completely blacked in as well. Yeah, just this. Yeah, I quite like. I like the variation in line. Just kind of, you know, make that a really, really thin line, razor thin line. Because it contrasts nicely with the other lines on there. Shu, who is an old school European, one of the sort of early, very, very famous writers in Europe. He did a whole thing about calligraphy and did a big book on it, and he's a good guy to look at for that sort of stuff, using old traditional letter forms and graffitiizing them, if that's a word, which it isn't. I thought I'd just end on a chunky one that I quite like the shape of. I jammed this, I thought, I quite like the shape of this. I think I only rubbed one of them out because I really hated it and just thought, that is awful, that is rubbish. But the rest I just thought, no, stick with it, you know, stick with it, see if you can do something with it, and then you, sometimes that's a good thing to do, you know, because what it does, it makes you work a bit harder. It makes you graft in the inking stage to make it work, because some of them you look at it and you think, I don't know, I'm going to make this work, and you got to work hard. That's what you got to do. Take your time, ink it, you know, think about line weight. And you'll think about it in the second you're doing it sometimes as well. You think, oh, actually, I could flare that out there, do a big, thick line on the top there. It's the same with painting, by the way. Sometimes you look at someone and you think, oh, I know what I'm going to do there. I'm not going to complete the line. I'm going to flare it out. So what I'm doing here, the reason I sped it up is because this is quite boring. But I'm just doing bits and pieces to make the letter sheet look a bit more interesting and to join the letters together, because look, there's loads and loads of negative space between them, so I just add some elements. And this is a good practice as well to get your sort of your doodads down, whatever you want to call them, doodads or crackle or little flary bits or bubbles or, you know, whatever, whips and, you know, so on. Just practice them and all, you know, practice them as well to make your always makes your pieces a bit more interesting. And it's nice to do different ones, you know, come up with lots of different ones, different things you can do. yeah, I always feel the pressure when I'm doing it, because I'm thinking, oh, what to do next, what to do next, and you know, you come up with something, and sometimes it's awful, and you know, you have to bite down on that and go, all right, fine. Some you win, some you lose. Anyway, there you go, guys. Now, if you've got a B in your name, you're in luck, because there's some ideas. Unless you're very established, in which case you don't need them. But if you're not very established, then maybe you do need a bit of a helping hand, bit of an idea about where to go with your letter B. And there it is. So I did mention earlier that I will be doing something on this. I'm not going to show you all the fonts I'm going to do. I just thought I'd make this video to show you, to give you a bit of an appetite teaser, you know. And there will be more, because I'm going to do something next year quite big with this, particularly for you guys who are sort of beginners in the first year or first couple of years, and you're struggling, because I get a lot of messages from people and stuff, so it's prompting me to do this. So anyway, guys, look, I hope you enjoyed that, and be back for more.